Hello and welcome to Queen Things. That's right, the rebrand is upon us. Queen Things is the new name of the show, but the show isn't changing. You've already come to know, understand, and love the type of commentary that you're going to hear on this show, all about pop culture, all about what's going on in the world, all about the things that I think are interesting and that queens care about. It's Queen Things, and the rebrand has begun. Hopefully, you're on board with that. And hopefully, our creative assets are done in time for this upload, like our logo and everything like that. I could be, putting the cart before the horse a bit here, but we'll see. We'll see. You guys will find out when you go to press play on this episode. Does the logo match the words I'm saying? We'll find out. But it is Queen Things. This is your October bonus episode. And I thought for the bonus episode, we'd talk about guess. You're never going to guess. It's Taylor Swift. Yes, it is Taylor Swift because I posted a YouTube video last week titled Taylor Swift is Exactly Who You Think She Is. And it is right now my most viewed video on YouTube in like the last several months. We're about to hit 4,000 views and we've got over 150 comments. And I want to dig into these comments because they're good. There's real discourse happening here. That's what I like about YouTube. We really get into the discourse because as far as I can tell, there are no character limits to the comments. People have quite literally put novels in the comment section. So I do believe that allows for more discourse, which is fun. That's what we're going to get into. And then I'm sure we're going to have a little bit of Black news by the end of this. And if there's anything else to discuss or if there's time, we'll do that too. Let's get into it. All right, so if you did not get a chance to watch my YouTube video, I would encourage you to do so. It's under 30 minutes, okay? So put it on in the background while you're cooking dinner, but I will summarize for you here. Basically, I argued that it seemed to me a lot of people, and in fact, a lot of Swifties were maybe feeling angsty about this album because it revealed some things about Taylor to them that I already knew to be true. So I didn't have to struggle with, some of these quote unquote revelations. That's just a hypothesis. I'm not saying it's true, but that was the hypothesis that I put forth in the video. And again, to summarize some of the things I said that I knew and that I thought we sort of all knew. One was Taylor loves love. Love is incredibly important to her. It's almost the most important thing to her, not the most, because she would not trade the Cartier for someone she could trust, but it's damn important to her. And so she made an entire album about it. And yes, some of it is silly little love bops, but like the girl wants to be in love. She wants her heart saved from Ophelia. Okay. Nope, that's not. She wants her heart saved from the fate of Ophelia. That's what it is. Okay. She doesn't want to be in the grave. She wants a man to pull her right on out. So that was point one. The girl loves being in love, and her obsession with love and continued desire to be in love seems to have caught some people off guard. And that is confusing to me. Another point I made is that some people feel like, oh, she is playing the victim and like she should be tired of that by now. But to me, I feel like Taylor, and I say this in the video, is it seems clear to me she is willing to hold a grudge forever and ever. Amen. And that is her right. That is her right. As some of you say in the comments that we'll get into, no one gets to decide how long she is upset about something, nor how many songs she writes about said thing. And so, yes, we're going on album 4, 5, 6, 7 of her alluding to her 2016 cancellation. And that is her right. That is her right. But that's also something I knew about her because she has been doing it for years and years. So, people sort of taking issue with that feels confusing. Another thing is the cash grabbiness of it all. I like to refer to Taylor as capitalist in chief. Now, some people get upset at that title. Again, we'll get into it in the comments. I actually don't only refer to her as capitalist in chief. I have called other people that before. I've called Beyonce capitalist in chief. Like pretty much billionaires, I think, get the title capitalist in chief from me. And Taylor's been a billionaire now for a couple years. Okay. And before she was a billionaire, she was extremely rich. So, the idea that this album was so much more cash grabby than all the others, where she sold all the variants and all the vinyl covers and blah blah blah, all the merch, what, so on and so forth, is again confusing. This is what she does. She is trying to make this money. She just dropped 300 mil on her catalog. She got a wedding to pay for. Like, yes, the girl cares about money. That's very clear, and it was clear before the album dropped. So it, to me, oh, the other thing I said was, when it comes to not speaking out about issues, we knew that. We knew that. How many issues? How many issues has Taylor spoken out about in the last several years? Very, very few. Now, there are some comments correcting me on some of the things I said. Again, we'll get into it. But for the most part, there are a ton of things Taylor has not spoken publicly about, and people saying, oh, the album is tone deaf, or she should have spoken about this, or I'm disappointed she didn't speak about that. Again, I don't know why. I don't know why you thought this would have been the time. She would have done it when she said many, many times, do it. So this is a sampling of some of the things. Again, I encourage you to watch the full video, but some of the things I said, I knew this about Taylor. I know she loves being in love. I know she's going to be singing about her 2016 cancellation until she is in the grave. I know that she, holds a grudge forever and ever, amen, and is never going to let it go. I know that she cares about money and is capitalist in chief. And I know she's not going to speak out about most of the issues you and I care about. These are all things I knew and things I made my peace with. And so I wasn't looking to this album as proof that she was going to suddenly change on any or all of those, nor were any of these things a surprise to me as a result of the album. That is what the YouTube video argues. I think the video probably argues it a bit more eloquently, because I just did it in 6 minutes, but that video is 30 minutes long. But hopefully you get it, you got it. So now let's dive into some of these comments. Okay, so first I want to get into some comments about the idea of Taylor, quote unquote, playing the victim, and or Taylor's quote unquote cancellation. So this first one here is from Invisible String 828. I feel like Invisible String has commented before. Could be wrong. But they say, it's interesting that people are still saying she sees herself as the victim on this album, because I really don't hear that at all. On Father Figure, I hear someone who is fully aware of their power and success and being extremely proud that they were able to reclaim their work. On Cancelled, I hear her being tongue-in-cheek about how our society treats women and not really caring anymore whether people like her or not. I actually love how secure and confident she finally seems on this album. And you know what? I'm so glad you said this, Invisible String, because I agree with you. I don't hear I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth a little bit. I do hear what people are saying when they talk about, playing the victim. I get what they're saying. At the same time, I agree that my major takeaway from those two songs in particular very much aligns with your major takeaways. To me, Father Figure was Taylor coming out dick swinging, for lack of a better word. It was Taylor coming out saying, yes, I am that bitch. Okay, my dick is bigger, my check is bigger. That's the clean version. Both are true. uh and this was her talking her shit, and I love when Taylor talks her shit. So is there a little bit of the victimy piece in it? Because, again, circling back to the Scott Borchetta of it all, and all of that, sure. I think such a pivotal moment in her life is going to continue to be subject matter, but I do feel like this was her putting her right on the table. And I loved it. So my takeaway was very similar for that song, and Cancelled as well. Now listen, I've said before, Cancelled is my least favorite song on the album. It is not a song I would say I dislike, but it is my least favorite. I think that has more to do with just like the way it sounds, than the subject matter. And yes, I agree. There's a lot of tongue-in-cheek happening in this song. Clearly, very clearly. Did your girl boss too close to the sun? Come on, we're clearly being tongue-in-cheek here. Is there also a bit like, now they've broken you like they've broken me? Are you broken? Are you broken, Taylor? Again, you're a billionaire. So I do understand the idea of people saying like there's just like a little too much of the victim hood happening here. It's just not surprising for me. And again, I tend to read it similarly to you as well, where, as you say, she's being tongue-in-cheek about how our society treats women and not really caring anymore whether people like her or not. And I do think that is kind of the takeaway of that song. Like, yeah, okay, I like my friends Cancelled because I've been there too. this is what society loves to do to us. At least we've got each other and we've got our matching scars. It doesn't sound fully resigned. It's not woe is me. It's like, you're canceled. Me too. And so while I get some of the feedback there, I would say my major takeaway very similar to yours for both of those songs. Now we have a comment from KR0693. They say, I'd say she was media canceled. Oh, because one of the points I made in the video was I'm not sure we can truly use the word canceled, given that shortly after her quote unquote cancellation, she went on Reputation tour, which was like the biggest tour of all time up until that point. So in response, this person is saying, I'd say she was media canceled, but the majority of her fans never canceled her. And I also think that, as my psychologist once said, when someone hurts you or you hurt someone, neither of you gets a say on how long the other holds a grudge. She tried to forgive and forget, and that's what landed her in that situation she was in with Kanye and Kim. So I don't blame her for saying never again. Fair. Very fair. I personally do not expect Taylor to forgive Kim and Kanye. I don't expect her to forgive anyone she doesn't want to forgive. I think the pushback people have is like, okay, but we're still talking about it. Not so much that you have to go and forgive them, more the like, you've made it this far. You're the biggest pop star in the world. You're a billionaire. And we're still talking about this thing. And it's not necessarily, I won't say I have angst around it, but I do have a little bit of like, particularly Cassandra, because Cassandra on TTPD, it's like, well, but you already did. Thank you, Amy. So two songs felt like, it felt like a lot. For me, nothing on this album felt like so direct about it. So I was not nearly as bothered. And I don't think that she owes anyone forgiveness. I really do not. I think everybody gets to decide whether how hurt they are. As you say in your comment, no one gets to decide for you how long you stay hurt for. And no one gets to decide for you how many songs you sing about it, Tay. You and you alone get to decide. And then I want to read these next two comments because one is a response to the other. And, I liked both. So the first one is from Carly Swan with 3 N's. Carly says, as someone who was around for the Taylor Swift is Over party, it was very much a cancellation and it was rough going. Even being a fan of hers was hard. And honestly, some of us didn't know if our girl was ever going to recover. Reputation was the comeback we needed, especially 1 year into Trump's first term. It was dark times and we needed the escapism. That's why the tour did so well. And then she said in parentheses, also because the album is fire. Okay. I hear what you're saying, Carly Swan. You feel like it very much was a cancellation. So then Hushed Tones 7168 replied with this. It was a time of social media and mass media mockery, certainly, but she would still always have been able to sell 5,000 plus person capacity venues forever. If you do the math, $50 a ticket times 5,000 is $250,000 gross per show plus merch. Maybe she wouldn't have been number one again or a billionaire, but she would still have been a very profitable commercial artist and already had many hundreds of millions at the time. It was a symbolic public loss, yes, and a mass narrative setback, but not at all comparable to a cancellation like someone working class losing their job and going bankrupt, no matter how emotionally and socially invested you may have felt into her story arc and her commercial promotional messaging. And she came back on top because she is competitive in nature and hardworking and skilled in many different domains of expertise and culture trends, and popular discourse flows over time, and she's been able to deliver back-to-back great albums nonstop after that. It's good to see now she can be happy and more wholesome, and people can also proudly like her as an artist. Okay, so I liked this back and forth. I will say I do understand the Taylor Swift is Over party and how it really did feel like a cancellation. I will say part of my recollection, and I was not a Swiftie at the time, but the news was everywhere. It was unavoidable. Part of my recollection of what sort of made it feel like a cancellation was Taylor going into hiding. Like my recollection is she wiped her social media, wasn't seen, wasn't heard for many, many months. And so that also, I think, contributed to it feeling like a cancellation, just because it was like she was there and then she wasn't. And of course, this coming after 1989, which was so huge, and she won Album of the Year. Like, she had such a huge moment. So to go from that to her being like essentially invisible, I think that contributed to the cancellation really feeling like a cancellation, even though in the background, Swifties were still buying her music, still streaming, still loving, and then obviously still purchasing tickets for the tour. So I'm not saying she full on wasn't canceled. I think canceled has a lot of different meanings. I'm just saying, if one of the meanings of canceled is your people aren't supporting you financially, I don't think she ever struggled that level of cancellation. I think she was still booking shows, still still booking shows, still selling the merch, still getting the streams. But I do hear you that, like, it was very emotional and very visceral, and it was hard. Totally get it. All right, so now I want to transition to some of the comments about Taylor not speaking out about issues. This comment here is from Liv Gray RZ7ZD. Liz says, thanks for your thoughts. Just as a note, Taylor has spoken out on abortion rights. After the overturning of Dobbs, Taylor wrote on social media, I'm absolutely terrified that this is where we are, that after so many decades of people fighting for women's rights to their own bodies, today's decision has stripped us of that. She also retweeted a statement by Michelle Obama about the topic. For the trans community, Taylor made a speech at the Eras Tour during Champagne Problems during Pride Month. She said, we can't talk about pride without talking about pain. Right now and recently, there have been so many harmful pieces of legislation that have put people in the LGBTQ plus and queer community at risk. We can support as much as we want during Pride Month, but if we're not doing our research on these elected officials, are they advocates? Are they allies? Are they protectors of equality? So I want to thank you for clarifying, because I had said in the video, I had named a few issues that Taylor had not spoken out about. And I said, I named abortion and trans rights as two examples. And here, this person is correcting me and saying, no, she has spoken out about abortion via her social media, and at Eras Tour she did speak out for the queer community, maybe not trans specifically, but the queer community broadly. So I appreciate you, Liv Gray, for pointing that out. I was unaware of those examples, so thank you for that. Okay, and then Liz Swanapole 467, apologies if I mispronounced that, said, if Taylor were to speak out on any issue, insert issue X here, it would never be enough. It would never be the right way to speak out. It would not be the right time to speak out. It would not be the right subject to speak up about. It would not be 100% the correct take on any given subject. There is absolutely no chance in hell that anything she said would be well received. Zero chance. Her activism has always been mocked. Her pain has always been classified as performative. Her talent has always been questioned. I think that that is a really good point, Liz. And I tend to agree. I do not think there's anything Taylor could say that someone would not take issue with. That is true. Do I think that that is a good reason not to say anything? No, I don't. Right? I don't. I mean, I think you could make that argument about anyone speaking up about anything. Yes, whatever she says, whatever issue she talks about, there will be people who say this is performative, this is not enough, she didn't do enough. You know, she posted her endorsement. An example would be her endorsement for Kamala Harris. There are tons of people who feel like that wasn't enough, and she didn't even put a picture of Kamala. It was a picture of herself and her cat. Which I don't know. To me, that's kind of a funny critique, but people did critique it. And so you are right. Do I personally think that that is a good reason not to say anything? No. I think if there are issues that you care about, you should use the platform that you've got to speak about them. That's how I feel. But I think you are right. No matter what she says, people will critique it to hell and back. People will say it's not enough. And I can understand, just sort of along those lines, her feeling like, you know what, I'm never going to do it in a way that feels right or in a way that contributes as much as people want. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure I'm well informed on issues. I'm going to make sure I always vote. I'm going to make sure I make it clear in the major elections who it is I am voting for, so that there's no lies out there taking hold, or AI images or whatever taking hold. And then I'm going to live my life in the way that I wish people would live their lives. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to be generous. I'm going to donate. I'm going to, like, I could see her coming to that conclusion, and I don't fault her for that conclusion. I spoke about this in the video. I have made my peace with the fact that Taylor Swift is not about to become an activist. That is not the life she is living. She is focused on being a pop star, at least when it comes to her public platform. She is focused on being a pop star, singing these pop songs, giving us these concerts and these shows. And I am okay with that. And I also am okay with other people saying they're not okay with that. That actually they think if you have a platform as big as hers, you need to do more with it than keep it 100 on the land, the sea, and the sky. I'm okay with that too. It's just, I'm not surprised that she is not giving us activism on Life of a Showgirl. And I'm not holding it against her. Okay, then really quickly, just on the topic of like Taylor loving love, I made the point that like this girl loves being in love. Okay, if there is one thing she wants, it is to be loved. Elena Lynn responded and said, "Excellent thoughts. I completely agree that Taylor really loves being in love, but I don't think that's what the Fate of Ophelia is about. I think it's for us, her fans, and the sleepless night she was referring to is the album release. The Fate of Ophelia picks up where the manuscript left off, thanking her fans for pushing her to keep creating the art that saved her life, while also acknowledging that fame has a dark side as well. If you'd never called me, I might have lingered in purgatory. You wrap around me like a chain, a crown, a vine, pulling me into the fire. Are we saving her or damning her? Remains to be seen, but whatever it isn't boring." And I wanted to include that comment because there have been people saying that on my TikTok, in my TikTok comments as well, that like Fate of Ophelia, because I posted a clip of the YouTube on my TikTok. Fate of Ophelia in particular is not about Travis. It is about her fans. I've seen enough people say it that I'm understanding that this is an interpretation of that song, and I'm with it. I'm with it if y'all are like for y'all. You know what I'm saying? Like I think music is meant to be interpreted, and I think any given song, any given album can have multiple interpretations. So I like that as an interpretation. Is that my interpretation of the song? Nope, it is not. My interpretation is she is pledging allegiance to his hands, his team, and his vibe because she's in love with him and he saved her from the grave and from the Fate of Ophelia. That's my interpretation, which I understand is far more literal, but that to me is what the song is giving. But I love this interpretation. Like, I do. I love it. Maybe it's both. I love it. So thank you, Elena Lynn. Okay, and then I'm going to end with a comment from the original Forever 7, who had some thoughts on me calling Taylor capitalist in chief. They say, calling her a cash grabber or even capitalist in chief is a bit weird to me, honestly, because that woman could have been a billionaire years ago if she did what most celebrities in her sphere do and started a brand. Beyonce, Rihanna, Selena Gomez, and more have all done it, and that's what has propelled them into true riches. Meanwhile, Taylor became a billionaire because her tour became the cultural moment for 2 years. That didn't happen because she wanted to be a billionaire. It happened because she built a catalog that is beloved by millions, and she put on a phenomenal show while treating the people who worked on it with her really, really well and paying them accordingly too. What's often lost in the conversation about her wealth is that most of her worth is tied up in her catalog. And since she has no plans to ever sell it, that's a pretty large amount that in reality doesn't exist for her. I would argue that in her case, she didn't work to become a billionaire. She worked really hard at her craft and at connecting to her fans and building a real community. Although now it's become so big, it's unimaginable. Okay. I've seen versions of this take, right? Like she, unlike other people, didn't create a perfume, didn't create a makeup line. In like her money comes from her music primarily. I will grant you that. You still have to work at becoming a billionaire. It truly does not happen by accident. And I almost think sometimes when people make that point, they almost belittle Taylor's business prowess. Yes, she makes great songs, but she is a marketer. She is a businesswoman. She has spent a lot of time thinking not just about what's the best version of a song I can make. How do I connect with my friends, not my friends, with my fans in such a way where they become more loyal to me than to any other artist in history. That is something that she has thought about. And I almost think when we have this narrative of like, oh, she didn't work at becoming a billionaire. Yes, she did. And I think it's probably work she's proud of. like I think y'all think that's the compliment. She didn't try to become a billionaire. And I think that's not a compliment. I think it's something she's proud of. I think it is something she's worked at. I think she's worked very hard to figure out, how do I make my fans feel like we are in a two-way relationship, so that when I do drop an album in 8 different variants and merch, some of which is cute, some of which, we have to be honest, is not, they buy it anyway because it makes them feel closer to me. It makes them feel special to be a part of this community. They buy every coffee table book. They come to the Eras Tour show 8 different times. How do I create that level of fanmanship? How do I continue dropping the Easter eggs and continue hosting the listening sessions? And now that I'm not inviting people over and baking cookies, put the listening session into the AMC theaters and make a quick, 100 mil off of that. Like, she is a marketer. She is a businesswoman. And the fact that her primary product is her art does not take away from her also being a businesswoman. And I think some of y'all don't like the way that sounds because then you think it puts her in cash grab territory. I think it puts her in capitalist in chief territory. And I think that's okay. I think when you live under capitalism, being committed to doing it better than everyone else makes sense. That's the system we live in. She's a part of that system. You're hearing it as shade. I'm not delivering it as shade. I really am not. All right, folks, that wraps up the comments. And before we get out of here, I do want to just drop a little bit of black news. And that black news is this. I've been watching clips from Doechii's Swamp Tour. And I am here to just say very plainly, I think Doechii is Beyonce's heir apparent as it relates to live performances. I don't think anybody is a stronger performer than Doechii out right now. I really don't. And I've watched clips of many, many, many artists, including all the ones that y'all might drop in the comments and say, well, what about blah, 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 blah? Nope. If you look at the combination of her breath support, her commitment to getting out every word she can physically, literally get out, and having her DJ live fill in the words she can't get out, which, by the way, is maybe 8% of the words. Okay, so the breath control and breath support. If you look at her choreography, almost every movement she's doing on stage is choreographed. There are very few moments where she's just standing still and delivering a line. Every line has a movement, a gesture, a dance. So the breath support, the choreography, the commitment to giving you all the words, which as a rapper, go watch any of these other rappers and see how many words per verse they are actually rapping on stage and how many they are either gesturing to the audience to do or, letting the backing track hit. I promise you, she's like 3x almost any other rapper out there. Maybe Kendrick has her at her level, like, honestly. So her commitment to actually giving you all the words, and then the theme of the show that she's delivering on, it is just wondrous to behold. It has several times I've said to myself, I have got to get a ticket to see Doechii. And by the way, I have listened to the album. I thought it was good, but I don't listen to rap like that. So it's not something I return to. So the chances of me purchasing a ticket to a rap concert are quite literally, it's never happened. It has never happened. But every single clip I see makes me want to purchase a clip or purchase a ticket to her show. She is Beyonce's heir apparent as it relates to live performances. And that is my black news. Okay. If you haven't seen these clips, please go watch them and then let me know if you agree. And that is it for our October bonus of Queen Things. I hope you enjoyed it. If you are hearing this and you are not subscribed, that's because you're hearing the teaser or because I made the decision to put the whole thing out. Either way, if you aren't subscribed yet, please head on over to patreon.com/2queens2crowns. Yes, we need to update that branding. Or find me over on my Substack, KJ Off the Clock, or you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts. And I'll see you for the next bonus.